As the NFL season has just started, I felt it would be a good time to take a look at how the butterfly effect has affected NFL history. I think we can all agree that football in Washington, D.C. hasn't gone well since the turn of the century. I mean, just look at what they are currently named. Since their last Super Bowl win in 1991, they have only reached the playoffs 6 times and have had double-digit wins only 3 times. They have had more double-digit loss seasons than these two figures combined. Not to say that there haven't been some quality players in DC, but when you haven't reached the divisional round in 15 years, you know there is a problem. With that being said, today's team actually did make the playoffs. While they didn't quite make the Super Bowl, they inadvertently allowed another team to do so by their own incompetence. It may sound too good to be true, but the incompetence of the Washington football team allowed the New York Giants to win the Super Bowl and defeat the near-perfect New England Patriots. How is this possible? Well, we have to head to the offseason before the 2007 season. But before we do that, I want to shout out Mike for this idea. And if you have your own butterfly effect scenario you want me to cover, leave it down in the comments. Back to the story. Heading into the 2007 season, Washington had just come off their 4th losing season in 5 years. They weren't far off from their 2005 season, where they had a divisional round exit against the Seattle Seahawks. But coming off a 5-11 record is not easy. Some analysts were optimistic on Washington's postseason chances, but some were not. On the opposing side, we have the New York Giants. The Giants were heading into the season coming off of 2 straight wildcard appearances. When you look at the betting odds heading into the preseason, the Giants had better odds than Washington, but other publications were more pessimistic on New York's chances. Week 1, 2007. Washington barely scrapes a win against the Miami Dolphins in overtime. The Dolphins team that went 1-15. Clinton Portis scored Washington's only touchdown. His name will come into play later. Also, Fred Smoot dropped an easy interception opportunity that would have put his team in field goal range. Even better was when quarterback Jason Campbell threw a Hail Mary with no time left, and Antoine Randall L. caught the deflection, but couldn't reach the end zone. Fortunately, Washington got the game-winning field goal. Now let's head over to the Giants game. A poor team defensive performance ultimately cost the Giants the game. The Giants were down by 16 with 7 minutes left in the 4th quarter, but a touchdown and a later interception that led to a touchdown cut the lead down to 3. But in the end, poor defense cost the Giants. Week 2, 2007. Washington wins against the Eagles, although not really in a convincing fashion. If Donovan McNabb didn't play as poorly as he did, it may have been a different game. And once again, Clinton Portis scored another touchdown, one of only 2 touchdowns that Washington scored. Then we head over to the Giants game, another poor display. In the 4th quarter, the Giants were only a possession behind the Packers, but a fumble off a kickoff return and an interception later in the quarter sealed the game. Heading into week 3, Washington was looking like a possible surprise playoff contender, while it seemed like the Giants were just not playoff material. Well, the events of this game would change the course of the 2007 season. A fumble recovery and 2 subsequent touchdowns allowed Washington to hold a 14-3 lead. Another interception by Eli Manning raised the deficit right before halftime. A downfield drive by the Giants at the start of the second half brought the deficit down to just 1 score. 1 quarter later, running back Derek Ward passes the first down marker, but he fumbles 5 yards away from the end zone. Fortunately for the Giants, Ward's arm had touched the ground before the fumble. A minute later, the Giants scored a touchdown. A little while later, the Giants are back on the attack, and a poor tackle attempt from the Washington player allows the Giants to take their first lead since the first quarter. With less than 2 minutes remaining on 4th down, Campbell makes a great pass to Santana Moss that keeps them in the game. Moments later, another great pass by Campbell puts Washington at the 1-yard line. On 1st down, they decide to spike the ball as they have no timeouts, and head coach Joe Gibbs wanted to set up a new formation. On 2nd down, a pass was dropped by Mike Sellers. On 3rd down, the team decides to not use Clinton Portis, who scored in each of the last 2 games and was the team's top running back for the past few seasons, although he dealt with injuries the season prior. I wonder what he was thinking about watching this all unfold.
Right there. Dolomite Jenkins? Who's this?
Dolomite Jenkins, that was inspired by Napoleon Dynamite.
Okay.
Choo-Choo, that's a dance instructor, and he pretty much went over all the guys' celebration on our team,
This was one of my favorites. Well, how'd you come with Doctor I Don't Know?
At the time of this, we really was, probably had lost 4 games in a row. We couldn't figure out what was going on. But, man, that's a living legend. He'll always be with us. That's everybody's favorite character, known all around the world. So, Southeast Jerome, that's a living legend.
Yep, he really wore all of those outfits. Personally, Dr. I Don't Know is my favorite. Let me know what yours is. Also, something that I feel definitely plays a factor, Portis was having a good game, while his backup, Ladell Betts, was not. Either way, on 3rd down, the Giants stopped Betts. With 40 seconds left, instead of taking some extra time to run down the clock, since it's going to be the final play of the game, less than 10 seconds later, Washington essentially runs the exact same play. Washington led 17-3 at the half, and they lost that lead by the 4th quarter. They didn't get an offensive first down in the second half until midway through the 4th quarter. You have one of your highest played players sitting on the bench when he was probably your most vital option in that situation. Complete mismanagement. Not only did this ruin Washington's surprising start to the season, it saved the Giants from going 0-3. I mean, just look at this graphic. The Giants' defense was ranked 29th heading into this game. They should not have gotten this stop, but it happened. What are you gonna do?
And who knows where this victory will lead the Giants? And who knows where this victory will lead the Giants? And who knows where this victory will lead the Giants?
Well, I'll tell you what the Giants are going to do. They proceed to win their next 5 games. A bye week inevitably stopped their momentum, but they ended the season 10-6. Washington, on the other hand, entered a bye week after their affair with the Giants. They traded wins and losses until week 10, where they would lose 4 straight games until week 13, where they would end the season with 4 straight wins, bringing their record to 9-7. The key game in this time frame is in week 15, where Washington beat the Giants, tying their season series 1 game apiece. If Washington had won their first meeting back in week 3, these 2 teams would have finished 9-7, meaning they would have had a tiebreaker to determine their playoff seeding. In real life, the playoff bracket looked like this. And if we follow the tree, you see that the Giants would end up winning the Super Bowl, while Washington was crushed in the wildcard round. If Washington had won their first meeting with New York, they would have been given the tiebreaker as they would have beaten the Giants both times in their season series, meaning in this alternate timeline, the Giants and Washington would have switched places. And now, we enter the land of what-if scenarios. You know them all. What if the 1994 MLB strike never occurred? What if RG3 didn't suffer so many injuries? What if Derrick Rose didn't suffer so many injuries? Time to add some to the pile. In real life, the Giants played Tampa Bay in the first round, while Washington faced the Seahawks. Seattle crushed Washington, while the Giants were able to beat the Buccaneers, continuing their unlikely run of dominance. If they switch seeds, would the outcomes change? It's definitely possible. In offensive yards per game, the Giants ranked slightly higher than Washington and the Bucs, but they ranked way below the Seahawks. Points per game is a similar story. However, on the defensive end, the Buccaneers outranked the 3 other teams in least amount of yards allowed per game. Points per game allowed is a slightly different story, but the Buccaneers still come out on top. So if the Giants played the Seahawks instead of the Buccaneers, it would have been a slightly more competitive matchup at the very least. Of course, you have to take into account the momentum the Giants had, but I think the outcome could have been way different. If Washington faces the Buccaneers, it would also be a very close matchup, given how close the score was in their Week 12 game. It's likely that Washington would not have been blown out like they were in real life against the Seahawks. Then you have the Giants facing the Packers in the divisional round rather than the NFC Championship. If you remember, in real life, the Giants beat the Packers on a field goal in overtime. In this scenario, given the Packers are more rested, do we see a different outcome? Of course, momentum plays a part, but facing a rested Packers team could prove to be a more difficult challenge. Then we look at the other side. If Washington beats Tampa Bay, they face the Cowboys. They were 1-1 in the season series, but Washington had the upper hand in their Week 17 matchup. But once again, a rested Cowboy squad with a chip on their shoulder could make the difference. Realistically, there are a lot of what-if scenarios stemming from this Week 3 game. However, what is for certain is that the incompetence of Washington's game management in Week 3 allowed the New York Giants to avoid an 0-3 start, go on a 6-game winning streak, and go on a miracle playoff run where they beat the near-perfect New England Patriots. And that's the butterfly effect for you. So, New York Giants fans, be thankful for your division rival. Be thankful for the Washington football team. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Leave a like if you did, and put your butterfly effect scenarios in the comments. Subscribe to Raving Sports and to my channel, SportStorm. Thanks for watching.